That's
That's
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
So did you see they had to close down the parade in Buenos Aires?
I saw I saw that people were like trying to jump into the open.
They did. They jumped into the
Right.
open aired van they were in. They had to evacuate the van, and they ended up doing the parade in a flyover in a fucking helicopter.
Wow, I didn't.
Talk about being close to the people. I mean, there was over 1 million people there. 1 million. That's what they said. 1 million.
That's a lot of people. I mean, but look, soccer in Argentina is it's at a level that I don't think the U.S. has a sport that's at that level.
Well, no, not.
So
I mean, I don't. Buenos Aires must be really big. Multi-million.
huge. So anyway, how do you do, Mr. Dennis? How has your week been?
Week has been a little painful. We talked about my fishing trip ad nauseum, and as it turns out, I don't know if I told you this, but I blamed it on standing in water which was rushing left all day long, knee deep, and my left knee hurt. And I thought, well, it's a lot of wear and tear on my old knee. And my right knee hurt a little bit, but not much. So I went in the hot tub and heated up both my knees, and thought, and put a little bit of ice on them. I think maybe not by that time, because it didn't really hurt. And then I said, well, it's tight, so I need to exercise.
Mm-hmm.
And so I took a short walk. Came back from the walk, and suddenly my right knee started swelling up behind the knee and felt terrible. And I said, oh my God, what's happened here? And it got to the point where I did ICE, which is the acronym for what you do.
I've seen RICE. RICE is the acronym involving like rest. Yeah.
Yeah.
The other is ice and compression and elevation or something.
Yeah. Ice, compression, elevation. RICE would be rest. But I did all of that for 3 days. And as it turns out, the swelling went down, and I actually took I did some shopping yesterday, so took a bit of a stroll. I admit I'm still shopping for what I want my kids to give me for my birthday, because they want
your birthday that passed a couple weeks ago.
Yeah. They want to know what to give me, and I tell them, and then I got to buy it. And then they give me the money, and then they wrap it, and then they give it to me. And at this point, it's like, what the fuck is the sense? I ought to tell them, you know what, I'm not going to tell you anymore what to give me. You give me something to surprise me.
Exactly. There you go.
Next year for Christmas, we're going to do, for the first time ever, if the vote that happened this year sticks, and we're going to draw names, but we're going to make something for the other person. It has to be something of our own creation. It could be I know I'm going to build something. I'm building, I think I shared this with you. I showed you pictures, I'm sure, of building the flower boxes on stilts. With the metal, the wire bottom, and the coconut grass.
I do not recall.
Coconut grass and a big long spool for like $35. That might have been the tool of the day.
Coconut grass seems like a thing you try on vacation. Right.
Well, that made me laugh as much as the opening.
So, I've got a bunch of old man, my body is falling apart stories too. For this
How old
week.
are you? 44?
I think 44. Yes. Yes. The other day somebody asked me and I was like, it took me
Am I
like
44?
30
If I was
seconds.
45, I'd remember that.
I remember being 42 and that was kind of cool, but
Here's here's a little story. Speaking of age, so I have my biannual wellness visit with my doctor. I had a complete blood work done and got lots of questions and issues. I get it there. I wait a little while. They bring me in the room, and the nurse, Michelle, has got a real dry, squeaky voice like this. Hi, hello, Dennis. How are you? And if you close your eyes, you think that it might be Minnie Mouse. And when she's on the phone, and my hearing is not good, and she had a mask on, and she did this thing, and she said, "Now I'm gonna, before we get started, I'm gonna give you 3 words. I want you to remember the words, and then I'm going to give you this circle that I've drawn on a piece of paper, and I want you to fill it in like it's the face of a clock." I
yes,
said, "Oh, okay."
this is your
And
typical, woman TV camera psych test.
she gave me the 3 words. I drew the clock, and then she said, "What are the 3 words?" I couldn't remember the 3rd word. And I barely remembered the first 2. And I looked at her and I said, I didn't try to remember it. I was focused on the clock. And it was sort of like, that's the point.
That's what we were doing, dummy. Yeah.
And I had already filled in the time on the clock, which I thought was a finishing touch. And then she said, "Now, draw on the face of the clock that it's 2:45 in the afternoon." And
Afternoon being important.
Well, because it'd be different. It would go all the way around again.
Okay. It's not the way clocks work.
I'd have to draw it all the way around again. I'd have to draw it all the way around.
Okay. And did you manage that?
I did it, but then
difficult task.
Then I wanted to erase the other one, and it didn't seem like it was allowed. And if that gets turned in, they're going to say, "Well, he forgot something. Plus, he couldn't write 2:45. He first wrote 3:00." I was only 15 minutes off when I guessed. Anyway,
look, I don't know. You seem relatively cogent.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that. So, big doings this week in the political world. We are wondering if it's the beginning of the end of our favorite orange president.
Yes.
The much 6 years of waiting for his taxes, and anyone who is hearing the news and doesn't say, "Are you kidding me? I'm shocked. You mean there's stuff in there that isn't true? Oh, you mean he paid 0 taxes?" So here's a twist on this. I don't know if you follow this, but as it turns out, I didn't know this. And I'm gonna back up before I learn this fact of the laws of our land.
You back up and you go running, get a running start.
Yeah. So walking backwards a little bit, there's a fellow who was big in the FBI for years and CIA perhaps or whatever, but his name is Rosenberg or Rothenberg, one of the two. And he's very on point. He's very smart. He's very experienced. I love when he talks. I love his answers. I think he's just so smart. Mm-hmm. And he said, "Well, I want everybody to be treated fairly, even people I don't like, even people I don't like a lot. I want them treated fairly. And if a president doesn't voluntarily give up his taxes, then that's up to him. And taxes are private. And I can't make you show your taxes. And if he doesn't want to do it, it's up to him." And I thought, well, that's an interesting point. Come to find out that there's a law that this guy doesn't fucking know about, which is odd, given that he's opining so,
authoritatively,
intelligently, authoritatively, exactly. that says that if the president doesn't give up his taxes, which none of them have done since none of them have not done since Nixon when it started in 1970, that the IRS is required to do a fucking audit. And the IRS never did it. And now they're claiming they didn't have the manpower for such a complicated case. And they wrote in the file, listen to this. This is Donald Trump in 2016. He was president. He'd been president.
Yep.
And they wrote in the file that given that this documentation is on file at this credible organization that Trump paid, money to organize his taxes, we assume that their documentation is complete. Now, I will guarantee you that if I didn't attach my shit, that I'd hear from them.
Yep.
Talk about a bonehead move. And they're also reporting that it doesn't appear that Trump put any pressure on them not to do it, but he kept saying, I'm under audit, which was a total lie. He was never under audit, and the IRS didn't put him under audit until the chairman of the Ways and Means Committee wrote the IRS and said, we want Donald Trump's taxes. And they looked at the files and they went, oh shit. We didn't follow the law for 4 years straight.
Boy, it's hard to find good, competent people.
Well, tell them, and you're gonna convince me that Trump didn't have anything to do with that? I fucking doubt it.
I'm of the opinion of never attribute to conspiracy what can be attributed to incompetence.
Well, true. True enough.
I suspect a lot of that was just government employees just doing the least possible work, which is so known to happen.
But and what's interesting is that's one of several things that happened to the Donald this week. The other one would seem to me to be more important, but all the reports and analysis would suggest that what I just told you is the most important, because it's going to prove that Trump is not a billionaire and hasn't been ever.
Right.
And it's going to eventually uncover that he was given gifts from the freaking oligarchs in Russia, as we've talked about numerously. The other thing that happened that he doesn't care that much about compared to this is that the January 6th committee to study the attack on the Capitol on January 6th recommended 4 indictments for Trump, which has no power or authority whatsoever. But they did their due diligence and they followed the law, and they said, you know what? We've got to wrap this up. This guy should never hold office again. We think there's evidence here to convict him of 4 felonies.
Yep.
That, he thought, or he thinks, is not as bad as what's happened with the taxes. Go figure.
I don't know. I'm so tired of all of these. We finally got him. This is the crime that is going to put him away forever. That's undisputable evidence. For sure, he's got to be convicted, and none of it ever does anything. And
that's
it should be done. I am in favor of the people doing this work, but I cannot get excited about we finally got him, because we never do.
The last time we felt this way, not the way you feel, but the earlier feeling of wow. Now it was when Mueller was writing his report. It was obvious to everyone that he's got a brain in their head, that he was using Ukraine in a political sense, and the House, according to many, and I wouldn't necessarily be of this opinion, completely fucked up the impeachment and the Senate was able to just blow by it because he wasn't president anymore. But
yeah, I don't know.
so that in the report that he wrote, whoever would have believed that it was released in a terrible way and it wasn't quoted correctly. He let somebody else do the summary from the Attorney General. And I was like, oh my God, waiting and waiting and waiting. And this feels a little bit like that, except that you can tell because the canaries in the fucking mine are dropping over like freaking flies in a windstorm. They're getting blown away. The Republicans, one at a time, drip, 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 are no longer behind them as much and not as many. Doesn't diminish the 30% rabid MAGA fans, but the Republicans are coming out, and the polls are reflecting that DeSantis in some polls are 20 points ahead of Trump. And young millennial voters who won this past midterm,
right?
That was of course, don't take for granted African Americans and women, blah, blah, blah. But the extraordinary turnout of the millennials was or young people, I wouldn't necessarily say more, it was younger than that even, was what changed the outcome. Those people who are Republicans are saying that it's time to move on and, quote, all he does is talk about 2020. Who cares anymore? And well put. And so if we're inside that spooky place that's Trump's head, we're not so concerned about the indictments and all that because he's always beat them. What is going to drive him to the suicide that I predicted would end this? Although I picked both the method, and the method and the place. I also picked the time, but we'll any suicide will count as me being at least somewhat correct.
Can you remind me of the?
I predicted that before he left the White House, he'd kill himself. But I did predict he wouldn't leave the White House. Well in advance. It was me and Bill Maher were the only two people that
yeah.
That were
he's too narcissistic to commit suicide.
Exactly.
He thinks death will not ever arrive to him because
and he's not a young guy. He's
yeah, but he thinks dying is what happens to those people over there.
Losers.
Yeah, and so I think for suicide you need some level of depression.
Yeah.
And I think he is super sad, but he's sad in a narcissistic way that is like, I'm frustrated that everyone doesn't love me as much as I deserve to be loved, or whatever.
Well, whatever he's going through now is you can't tell from the outside whether the man is depressed, sad, or just being quiet, but quiet doesn't seem to be part of his makeup. If you want to Google something funnier than hell, back when Trump lost, I believe he lost the election with Biden, and Ari Melber, who's just a great news journalist, reporter, he reported to the listeners about how Trump was now a loser.
I have this in my search history from last time you.
And it had just come out that it had been reported that, and everyone knew that the worst thing for Trump, he called everybody a loser.
Right.
He called McCain a loser. People, and he knew that it was the worst thing. He must have called Trump a loser. I would guess a count of 17 times in like 2 minutes.
But that's why in Trump's mind, he wasn't a loser. Like, he can't let that be the truth.
Right.
But
if it really was in his mind that he didn't lose, he's not guilty.
I don't know. Can we talk about something else?
Sure.
Tired
You
of
talk about whatever
this
you want.
orange motherfucker. So I a couple of weeks ago, my right little toe started hurting, and
Your right little toe. That's easy. Cut it off.
it looked like it wanted to
You
abandon
don't
ship.
need it.
And it got to the point where I was sort of like limping, like it hurt to put weight on that foot. And
So
I made
it was the joint behind the toe, not the toe.
I made an appointment with the doctor, and because it didn't feel urgent, like I just went through the regular appointment process. Where here generally they give you an appointment like a week from now,
Yeah.
and turns out the vast majority of like small ailments that we get as humans, a week later you don't have them anymore, and you don't. It's like you just don't go, or you cancel. But my toe still hurt, and so I went, and I was diagnosed with, I guess it's what athlete's foot is. Like I've had some sort of a fungal growth
On the bottom of your foot and in the crack of your toe.
in the crack of my toe, and also there's like a like the skin is broken there, and there was like there was also like a bacterial infection, and the doctor was like, "Oh wow, you should have come
Gross.
earlier." Yeah,
Gross.
yeah,
He said, how often do you wash your feet? And you said, well, when I take a shower. And he said, how often do you take a shower? And he said, I don't know, once a week. And he said, are you French? I said, no.
Look, the 15th of the month is shower day, and
That's when your wife takes you in and with a leash on you because you hate the water so much.
exactly.
The athlete's foot is caused by less than stellar care of the foot.
Right. I think I had been neglecting my foot.
You're sweating and not. And so I had such a severe problem with my feet
Yes.
that I too had medical attention, and now my routine is washing my feet every day and applying once a day a lotion that claims to be particular for diabetics, but it is created for a man whose nickname used to be Stinky Foot, or as some would say, sock rot.
Yes.
And my friend will tell you a story if you ever ask him about a trip we took to Florida where I had been working in a restaurant for 14 hours straight, and all that wet and that grime and that grease and cooking and all this other stuff. Jumped in the car and we drove for 12 hours. I slept the whole time, but I had on my work sneakers, and a restaurant floor stinks terrible.
Right.
In the kitchen. And the trip we took to Florida where he had to smell the trip home, he had to smell those feet. And I slept for 14 hours. I woke up once and he was lost in a snowstorm in Western New York. And I fell right back asleep again in a little Volkswagen, my red Volkswagen.
So I was given a fungicidal cream and told to clean and apply it twice a day, and I have been, and it's getting better.
Yeah. The thing that happened to me, which is real weird, you know what this happened, is that my sweat glands in the front base of my foot have deteriorated, and there's a rough patch of skin there because they're shot. They were like cratered out. And it was that more than anything that caused I had a doctor say, "Oh man, you're beyond the pale here." He said, "The only thing I could do is cut it out." I said, "Well, you could do that.
Cut it out, Doc."
Yeah. Hey man, cut it out. Oh no, I didn't mean it. I don't know, but isn't it interesting, really, that us talking about our feet, we're enjoying it a lot more than talking about Donald Trump.
Yes, much more.
So,
Oh, that was your isn't it interesting? So anyway, that looks to be on the mend, but it needs to be monitored, which is it kind of sucks because like my general way of getting exercise is like going for walks and going to the municipal pool, and both of those are sort of like out.
And you wear sandals at the pool?
I do, but still,
Yeah.
I don't. Knowing that I'm contagious, I don't really want to go there.
No, right. Well, you can always go to the gym and ride a bike.
Yeah, but then you got to shower. I don't know. And my other problem is and I had this like a year and a half ago. So within our podcast timeline, I'm getting some like RSI pains in my right arm from just working, from like scrolling the mouse and just that. And last time I ended up taking like a week off of work.
Yeah, I remember.
And that helped. And also getting this standing desk helped a lot because I can like adjust the angle at which I am using the computer.
Move it up, right.
But
and you're on your computer using your mouse how many hours a day?
10.
Yeah.
So, and it kind of like I can't take a week off of work because this is like my last week of my job.
Right.
How'd
your interviews go?
So I've been like, I took a couple of days off at the end of last week, and this week I'm just sort of powering through and probably hurting myself more, but just to finish my final project so that I feel.
And then you get a break.
And then I'm going to be off for at least 2 weeks.
Have you seen the holistic ointments and creams that will penetrate and soothe? There's quite a few that work quite well.
So what do you mean by holistic?
I should say naturopath, not holistic. If they were holistic, you'd rub them in your head too.
Okay. And what does naturopath mean?
Made out of natural ingredients, Camphor, and
as opposed to
chemicals.
What? Okay. You know what the plants are making chemicals, right?
Yeah, sure. You can get stuck on my language if you want, or you can think about how helpful it is, and I'm giving you some way to help yourself. Just take the fucking ointment. I don't care.
Thank you for trying.
Made out of.
Thank you.
There's Chinese. Some of them are Chinese. So what you just call? I just call them Asian remedies.
Yes, there you go.
Chinese red dragon sore muscle rub.
Right.
I'll
wipe some tea on my body.
Right.
Yes.
I know. They put some tea bags on your eyes.
There you go.
Yeah, because the eyes absorb the world around it.
That's so true, man. Yeah. So, when I was at the doctor with my foot, I was also like, hey, also my arm, and she poked and prodded my arm and was like, tendinitis, and I was like, yeah.
Is it right below the elbow in the front, right here?
No, it's the mid forearm between the elbow and the wrist.
Top. Yeah.
It's from lifting the fingers.
Yeah.
So, I know from the past, there are like physiotherapy these solutions where someone can come and like massage my stuff, but I understand from the past that just rest and like I'm looking forward to ignoring the computer for a couple weeks coming up.
And you have interviews scheduled?
So many interviews, and they multiply. Like I said last time, like, and it's like the companies they want. It's like it's almost like it's fun for them to have as many people in the. It's a 25-person company, for example, and they want me to meet with 5 people in the company
At once?
No, not at once. Individually.
That's stupid.
Individually.
That's stupid.
And so
for the application. That's pay me to do that.
Exactly.
You want me to spend 5 hours? Pay me.
And they right, exactly. And they and then they all say, let's leave some time for at the end for you to ask me anything you want about the company. And at this point I'm like, I've asked all my questions. Like, I know everything about you guys.
Now, had I had my interview when we spoke last?
No, you were jealous of me with all of my interviews.
Oh, so I had mine. It was good. It was enjoyable. I mean, at one point, this was the quotable quote that told me that I did as well as I thought I did. I mean, you really have to kind of be introspective about that. And she said, I've got some questions I have to ask you. And we've talked so much. She said, I wish I had scheduled this for 3 hours instead of 45 minutes. I've got so much to learn from you.
Wow. There it is.
And I'm like, boom. But she was a very nice person. And I had read some of her work, quotes in a newspaper and a report that she wrote when she was a local manager. Mm-hmm. And I worked in her work as examples of what we were talking about.
Nice.
She asked me a question. I'd say, well, blah, 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 blah. Well, and when you did your sequential intercept model in your jail, that's what you had to do there. And she looked at, she was startled.
Right.
And she said, oh, you know about that? I said, yeah. She said, well, how do you know about that? I said, well, I looked it up in preparation for talking to you. I mean, totally transparent.
Sure.
I mean, what else would she think? That I just, what?
Just saying, it'd be nice if you could prepare for one of these calls, but whatever. Yeah, I've run into, like, I'm such a fickle puppy that, like, the job I want to take is the last one that I interviewed with, because like and I actually enjoy interviewing, which is kind of one of the problems. Like, it's exhausting, but it's kind of fun too. And the different technical questions that they propose are really interesting. Like, there was this one guy that said, look, I know who you are. I've looked you up. From me, you're a yes for sure. But I've had interviews where one company said you're a yes for sure without anything, and the other one that like challenged me a little bit, and I wanted to work for the one that challenged me a little bit because the yes for sure felt like too easy, and I was like, that's kind of an interesting take. And so we talked for a while about, not about anything in particular to the company or their problems or anything, but just like nerding out about tech.
Have you ever taken an in-basket test? Where I had to take an in-basket test to become a government executive.
To see if you're a basket case?
They might have, the way I answered it, but they and then they act like, this is your in basket. You walk into work and you sit down, and there's three things in your in basket that need attention, and you got to decide which one you do first, and then you got to lay out in writing what you did. And if you're saying, for example, I would respond in writing with a memorandum, then you have to provide the memo. Mm-hmm. It's all afternoon.
Sure.
And they gave me this in-basket test to get this job. And one of the questions was, you get this memo, this formal memo from a senator claiming some thing you were doing, which is negative, and you need to respond to it and make a plan for what happens next.
That's pretty clever. Like, I imagine you're going to find you're going to be able to rule out a lot of people from that sort of test.
Well, and my response, which I had no idea, I just responded honestly, which I wrote the senator a memo, and said that, thank you for pointing out some potential areas that we need improvement. And I look forward to any testimony or further information we can provide, and blah, blah, blah. And I send that out. And then I've got an internal meeting that I have. And I say, pretty much without using these words, that the message is, this batshit crazy motherfucker senator's after us again. And we've got to get prepared for this hearing, and you pull all this stuff together.
Not those words.
Another a formal memo to somebody else, and then a phone call to a colleague who knows the senator, who can act on my behalf. And I kind of elaborated on this, and it wouldn't be unusual for me to be working with a senator and know that I've got 3 or 4 people that are in good with the senator, And so I did all that, but it was a bit Byzantine, and quite complicated.
And a lot like it's supposed to be like work, but also it's like, how many hoops do I have to jump through?
When realistically, what I was suggesting would end up being very effective, as opposed to other people that weren't as experienced as I was, who I don't know what they would say or do, but at any rate, this was a job, and you might have heard the story before. You probably don't remember, because you don't remember anything we ever talk about in prior episodes, but that...
Wait, who are you again?
I didn't get the job. And I was told it's because of my in-basket test that I failed it. And the woman who worked in the governor's office, who was my champion, was in a grocery store and heard a woman talking to another woman in another aisle in the grocery store, and saying that out loud for my friend, my colleague, to hear, I really nailed a cracker last week. This is a black woman talking. I really nailed this cracker last week. And talked about this in-basket test, and talked about this, and that she did it at the request of the representative, the head of the committee for appropriations.
They just did it to fuck with you?
Make sure I didn't get the job, because she wanted her protege to get the job. So it went into a potential lawsuit. The governor's lawyer ended up calling the representative. And they ended up, claiming it in a legal manner. And so the outcome within fairly quickly was that I had to take the test again. And it was the same test. And one of the things that I did poorly on was the legal EEO, economic and equal opportunity employment rules and regulations and laws, which I thought I had prepared well, but I didn't prepare in the way that I needed to. I didn't prepare in an analytical way. I prepared more in a memory type way, if I recall, but I didn't do well with it. Well, I took the
Boy,
test again. I crammed on it for like, and then I aced it all, and I got the job. But
amen.
and I sparked on that because you said you enjoyed it. I really enjoyed digging into that in basket.
Yeah, like I all of my tech interviews I have found enjoyable because some of them are way more interesting than others, and some of them are way more realistic than others, which is an interesting thing. I like the ones where they've come up with a thing where they say, okay, here are two problems that we in our business had to face, and we've come up with a solution. What would you do?
Huh.
And I like that format because they already have their answer, but also if you give a smarter answer, they'd be happy to take it from you.
Right.
But
right.
So that was fun. And another one that I thought was just like we had an hour allocated, and we started, and they were like, okay, see if you can do these three things, and it was just so easy. And like I got to the end after like 8 or 10 minutes, and the guy was like, okay, well, that's the end of the test. And I was like, really? That's all I had to do? And but like I've got a friend at that company that used to interview people at that company, and who's actually leaving that company. And I told him, I said, the test like this, the technical test was super easy. And he was like, you would not believe how many people fail that test. Like that screens out so many people.
Yeah.
And I was just like, really? Like that's
really, because
like,
they
that's like what my job is. That's like the easiest part of my job.
Well, they're overreaching. I mean, these are people that are putting in scores of applications and never getting hired. We used to do a thing that was weeding people out like crazy. And we'd say, so here's the story. You need to listen to this because in a minute, I'm going to send you over to this workstation over here, and you're going to draft a memo to me about what I'm telling you, because I don't know this yet. But so here it is.
Interesting.
Blah, blah, blah. Here's something that happened. So you need to write that to me, and be careful punctuation and grammar.
Mm-hmm.
And 95% of the people that I interviewed could not do it well enough that I could say that they had the minimum writing skill.
Man.
And they were otherwise very skilled. Some of them experienced and vocal. But I've learned over the years, if you can't write, if your staff can't write, you're going to do the writing for them.
Right.
Because your editing is going to be like, it'll drive you crazy. It'll be mostly red.
Yeah. So I already have one offer that probably isn't going to be the one that I choose. And I am nearing the end of what I call the digestive tract of the recruitment process.
Which track?
Digestive. Like, I think there's an offer about to be shed out, but like we're bumping up against the holidays, and people in different VP of engineering is on vacation, and it's gonna be at least until the end of January, I think, before I know where I'm going to be working. Yeah. But I have. It's such a wide variety. Like I have between a team of 5 people and a publicly traded company. And it's just so the range.
Where do you lean on that scale?
So my current favorite, God damn it, cat. My current ideal is actually the publicly traded company, but because because I would be a member of a very small team
Right.
in there that has been given autonomy to do what they think is best, and that would be fantastic.
Yeah.
And like, I don't need, if it's good salary for doing interesting work that is like a solid salary, like this company is profitable and not going anywhere.
So
That's very, like, I don't like, sure,
security.
there will be some stock involved probably, but it's I've done a lot of like stock options at a startup where it's like let's see, maybe if things go well, this will be worth a lot of money.
Right. Speaking of which, and turning down a job, did you hear the job that Matt Damon turned down?
No, do tell.
The star of the leading star, male actor of Avatar, for a 10% percentage of the take.
No, wow.
First movie, he would have brought home $274 million.
Yeah.
2.7 billion.
Look, there are always these stories. Like there's the guy that painted a mural at Facebook headquarters, like when Facebook was a year old, and took some of his compensation in stock, and walked away with hundreds of millions because he's just a fucking painter.
Hopefully, he sold it last year.
Right, but like there are these stories that.
Yeah, so I've been meaning to ask you, what is your take on this craziness of Elon Musk and this Twitter stuff that he's done? He spent, am I right about this? He spent 4.4 billion for, not 44 billion, 4.4 billion for Twitter.
No, which I think it's more. I think you were closer with the other.
44 billion, and knowing that it was on the brink of bankruptcy, headed toward bankruptcy, and apparently knowing that going into it and having the hubris to think that he was going to turn it around.
44 billion. So what he
it's never broken a profit since it was founded.
No. It's been, and it's one of the worst run tech. It's if you had a ratio of how important a company is over how well it's been run, Twitter is by far the highest value of that. Like, it's been run so poorly, and yet it is so important in the global world. It's really ridiculous that such a thing has happened.
That is so critically important, and it's so terribly run.
But it's so important because all the journalists are there. Everyone that you see on TV, when they put their name on underneath who's talking now, they also put their Twitter. They say at whoever. And
that cat, I tell you what,
the fuck is it doing?
It's an editor's nightmare.
No, I'm leaving all that in. So all the journalists are there, and they're and by that being true, it means that whatever happens on Twitter gets reported as news. So even though a tiny percentage of the actual human race is on Twitter,
Yes,
it's
much smaller than the other option.
Twitter has the microphone of the media in this way that whatever happens there gets told to everyone who is like, Twitter, what's Twitter? I've never been on Twitter. So it's a really special thing that I've heard a lot of good analyses about how, like, if Twitter went away, nothing like it would come back. Like it's a special unicorn in the evolution of media that this thing exists at all.
Well, he wrote, he put a poll out, said he'd abide by it. He had 57% of the people responded, some odd 10 million people, that he should step down because he asked. And he wrote back and he said, as soon as I can find somebody stupid enough to take this job, I'm going to give it up.
So he didn't want that job. Much like our orange friend, he just wanted the power to show the power play of, I could totally buy that or get elected at that if I wanted to. And then when it happened, and like Elon tried to pull out of buying Twitter, and then the
FCC said, no, you passed the point of no return.
It's not FCC, it's SEC, Security and Exchange.
SEC.
They were like, no, you have to. And so he was like, well, fuck, I guess I have to. And I heard some great analysis today about how with Tesla and SpaceX, his crazy ideas are like constrained by the laws of physics. Like you can't just be like, well, why don't we send a rocket into space with half the fuel? Like you just can't, you can't do that. And
you're kidding. I thought it was someone in my house calling for help.
Help. And so, but with like a software platform, you can literally, if you can imagine it, you can like tell someone to program it.
Yeah.
And in that way, he's particularly ill-suited for this role.
Well, there were two bits of homework that now you're ready for because you'll soon be on vacation, and one of them is related to SpaceX in the sense that the guy who went there first was Branson, and there's a documentary out about Branson that is absolutely amazing.
Really?
Amazing. And it's worth watching.
I find it amusing that you think that my vacation involves like a screen somehow.
About what?
That my vacation involves like being able to sit down and watch.
Because you're taking a break from a computer for 2 weeks.
Yeah, but I'm going to a foreign land, same country.
Oh, you're going to Canary Islands.
I am with family. In 2 days.
Oh, in 2 days.
It's super.
When you told me about that, I was thinking somehow, I don't know why I thought it was more in the future.
Christmas Eve, we're flying out.
Oh, geez. Oh, yeah. Well, forget the homework. But anyway, when you get back, I guess, Branson. But let me mention this other one because we're about out of time here. Is Let the Right One In. And it's a vampire series, which I know you're not going to be particularly thrilled with. But this one is interesting because the vampire is a girl who's 12 years old. And her father, who will not let her have sin on her soul, is killing for her so that she's got fresh blood to drink. And the acting is great. The screenplay is actually quite good. And it's all about him searching for a cure while his daughter is in tow, going from place to place and trying to find out who did this to her, thinking that he would find the cure. And now that it's over, I've done 10 episodes. In hindsight, I took a break from it after the third one because I felt like maybe it was getting a little bit too cheesy. Then I went back to it because I ran out of shit. And I was laid up after I fished. Did I tell you that I had a knee problem? I couldn't.
Yes.
I had to ice. Yeah, I did tell you that.
Right.
And it wasn't that sparked Branson came in for that, but this one, for any rate, I came back into it.
Yeah.
I went to the end, and now I am hooked. I cannot wait for the next season. It got that much to me. I guess it got better. I don't know that it's necessarily about getting better or it's about my attention or what.
Sure.
But one of the fascinating parts of this series that I want to mention to you is that the actress, who's the lead actress in it, is the daughter of a very famous actress.
Okay.
Meryl Streep's daughter.
Interesting.
Who we've talked about before. Her name is Gummer. She took her daddy's name. Gummer. And when you look at her picture, you say, I might guess that. But if you don't know it, you don't know it. But when you hear it, you say, now that you mention it, holy cow.
Yep. I have image searched her, and for sure, super streepy.
And so,
creepy streepy.
And I'll save it for if you ever get to the point where you can see it. But I've got some
thoughts,
critical remarks about her acting.
But I'm okay with taking a genre that is like super cliche and then flipping it to be about like, a father-daughter murder spree because he's trying to help her or whatever. Like
it's a different take.
Yes.
And in this case, it's not. There's part of it that's not particularly new because, of course, Interview with a Vampire had Kirsten Dunst was the first amazing child vampire,
right?
And nothing will ever chill me to the extent that chilled me.
Okay.
That was wild, and I will never forgive the producers and the director for hiring Tom Cruise to be the main vampire. Brad Pitt was well placed, but Cruise not so much. But still, I've seen it several times. And speaking of Brad Pitt, have you seen The Curious Life of Benjamin Buttons?
I did several years ago when it was.
I just rewatched it again from beginning to end, and then went back and did clips of it because it kept coming up on my screen. When I was channel surfing.
You really should watch it from the end to the beginning, right?
I did in this case. You're right. I watched it all backwards, and it was amazing how he aged.
That was so on the cusp of semi-believable special effects at the time.
One of the perspectives that I took in the last few was exactly that.
Like they were so close to having it not look like shit, but they weren't all the way.
Well, it wasn't perfect, but it was quite good. And even if you can watch a movie with that much special effects today and still enjoy it, then that's a tribute. But how many of these were more dated than that? You just won't be able to watch it now.
Sure.
It's just too cheesy.
I feel, in my mind, that movie is categorized a little bit like with Time Traveler's Daughter, about a bizarre time phenomenon mixed with romance, and how you can have a relationship that goes in a strange direction.
Yes.
That makes sense.
Well, and the part of it that of the special effects that I thought were one of the reasons that I wanted to see this clip again, and I lucked out because one time I channel surfed to it and went to it, and it opened up and it was coming on this scene. It's the last time that Brad Pitt's character, Benjamin, shows up at his wife's door, and he's about 16. And it is so spectacularly, to me, realistic. And I say that because it may be less so to you, because your eye may be more discerning to me, since that's your business, in one sense. But he's such a handsome man that as he became dashing in his, when he got to in his 40s,
right?
He was 42, he was 36, 42. He was fucking dashing.
Yep.
And then he went younger and younger. That's worth seeing again. I think he's a great fucking actor.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I like the way I related to Time Traveler's Daughter is it's
Time Traveler's Wife.
Time Traveler's Wife, sorry.
The Daughter is the sequel that we haven't seen yet.
Sorry. Alba is her name, yes.
What's Alma?
Alba. Yes.
Good job, man.
I don't know why that came out so quickly. That's a Spanish word meaning dawn, by the way.
No shit.
Yeah. And but what I like, the reason I have it categorized with that other movie is the misplaced ages with a romantic relationship. Like we love each other, but at some point we were the same age, but now I'm 16 and you're 50 or whatever.
Yeah.
And that sort of tension.
Well, and that the 16-year-old Benjamin Buttons meets his wife, or ex-wife, I guess. I would imagine that they actually divorced at some point, who's married and has a child of her own, and they have a romantic tryst.
I remember that scene.
And it actually is. I'm not sure that I liked it that much. I'm not sure that I liked it that much. It was very. It seemed tragic to me.
Oh,
that's a better way to put it. It seemed
sad.
Tragic.
Yes.
It wasn't. Oh boy. Oh great, good way to go, man.
Right.
or good for you, girl. Go for it, girl. No, it was tragic and sad.
Well,
the fact that she wasn't monogamous, and the fact that he was like 16. You're quite adept at managing your sound, that you shut it off before you sneezed.
Well, what a lovely note to end on, the tragic.
Right.
There we go.
Well,
the tragic.
That was recorded. Let's see.
Tragic...
So I was thinking the other day, what was it? It was about you ending of your job, and the catchphrase was, too much baggage for landing.
Yes. So my metaphor is, so there's two metaphors with startups. where you have venture capital money. So you want to start a company and you convince some venture capital people, hey, my company is going to be worth $1 billion someday. And they're like, okay, fine, we'll give you $5 million for 5% of it or whatever, expecting, to have a huge return. And so now you have 5 million and you can hire employees and stuff. And they call like what you have in the bank plus any revenue that you have, which often is nothing, minus what you're paying for payroll and expenses and stuff. They call that your runway. Like if things continue this way, we're not going to be able to take off after a year or 9 months or 3 years or whatever, depending on how much you raise and how much you're spending. And so when you choose to hire someone, you necessarily are like adding to that burn. So you're gonna shorten your runway by hiring someone, but hopefully you're hiring someone to make it so that your company has a better chance of taking off from the runway.
Well,
so
it's a great analogy, and we talked about the fact that you've got such heavy baggage because your remuneration is high enough that you're pretty heavy. But there's a blues tune in there, and
there must be.
There is a blues tune in there.
Have you been working on one?
You say I'm too heavy for liftoff, and my weight's just too much.
This is blues?
You say I'm too heavy for liftoff, and you think I'm such and such. Well, I'll save you the trouble of pushing me out the door. 'Cause I'll crawl to that space and I will jump from the floor, and I'll land on my feet like some damnable cat, and I won't ever think about how you did that. Tell me I'm too heavy for liftoff, and I don't care a hoot, 'cause I'll scoot on the floor and I'll jump without a chute. Well, I'll land on all 4 feet like some damnable cat, and you won't ever get me to come back, 'cause I know you regret it when you crash your goddamn plane, 'cause the runway ain't so long that you're gonna make it anyway. That's a blues by way of Dolly Parton.
You've been pardoned.
Did you watch the clip of her in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame yet? That's a bit of homework. You could do that in 2 minutes.
Well,
and remember, what I want you to listen to is her opening guitar strum,
right?
And how it would have been so much better if she would have done that instead of what was a country tune masquerading as a fucking rock and roll song. Well, that's it. Songs, jokes, stories.
Happy New Year, man! I will see you.
Man. I'm going to the Muskegon River Inn for New Year's Eve. My wife has requested it. Little does she know that New Year's Day I'll be fly fishing. It's supposed to be 40 degrees. My knee will be better. I'm going to go into my hole.
What a great way to start a year.
That's what I thought. And she said, well, what am I going to do? I said, well, you just stay in the car and read. Keep their engine running. How long? Oh, a couple of hours.
6 or 7 hours. You'll be fine, honey.
It won't be that long. Anyway, love you, man. Happy New Year's. Because no, we'll see you before New Year's. Because you're on vacation.
No, I'm on. I'm off. I won't be back until
Okay. All right.
until next year. We'll be in
To the
touch.
2023, bro.
Yeah, baby. Okay, that's it for episode number 170. You can find the show notes at happyhour.fm/170 with links to all the different articles and TV shows and stuff that we talked about. This is the last episode of 2022. So, Merry Christmas, Happy Kwanzaa, Happy Hanukkah, and Happy New Year. We'll see you next year.